Welcome to the Under the Hat podcast,
the show where we talk about everything and anything that is top of mind in education.
The goal is to provide meaningful conversations to what is currently happening in our classrooms.
Stories, pains,
moments of success.
We want to hear it all.
Hey friends, welcome back to Under the Hat. Super pumped to be here this morning. And as always, I'm your co-host, Steve Martinez, and I'm joined by
the sparkling and wonderful Sophie, your other co-host. Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, or evening, or whenever you're listening to this.
Wherever, whatever, right? So Sophie, how are things on your end? What is top of mind? What is something that you feel you have to get off your chest right now?
I hate winter.
That's fair.
That's what's on top of mind right now. It is cold. Yeah. It is windy. It is so much snow and ice. I still have like 3 inches of ice with like an inch or two of snow in my driveway. I am ready. I'm ready for spring, very much so. What about you, Steve?
Things are fairly busy on my side. We are in the thick of like getting our interns ready for the next academic year. So doing all the prereq stuff out here in Cali. And something that I'm hearing a lot from them is just like the nervousness of like, wait, a classroom's going to be my own classroom. And so they want to do it, but it's also kind of scary, right? If you've never done it before. And so while that's been like fun, but it's also like, I feel like I'm empathetic. So I kind of like, oh, I feel that, but we're here for you kind of thing. So that for me is what's top of mind.
Great. Yeah. I love decorating and putting my classroom together to make it like a homey space. That was one of my favorite things to do at the beginning of the school year or when I get into a new building. Yeah. Well, nice chatting with you, Steve, but I'm here to actually talk with Chuck. And so today's guest has spent 29 years navigating the complexities of education as a teacher, coach, and district director. And he's currently back in the assistant principal office by choice, trading the district view for the daily face-to-face work of building a school culture that sticks. Chuck focuses on a ripple effect of leadership, equipping staff to be their best so that the energy reaches every student in the hallway. And his philosophy is don't be afraid to be awesome. And it's not just a soft mantra. It has high bar standard for recognizing your specific value and having the guts to use it to improve your community. Thanks so much for being on the show, Chuck. For those of us who don't know you, please tell us a little bit about your educational journey.
Yeah. So like you said, 29 years. And it all started in an 8th grade civics and English classroom. And I loved it. At first, I suffered from imposter syndrome, which I think all of us in education do every time we get a new job. And then I realized after a little while, maybe I could do that. And I did that for 8 or 9 years and then moved into administration. I was assistant principal at an elementary school, then at a middle school. Then I actually went back into the classroom because I was starting to distribute all this wonderful technology and had no idea to tell teachers how to use it or if they were using it right. And so I went back in the classroom for a couple of years, became very familiar with that. Like got to the point where at first I was afraid of my Promethean board, but then I learned I could not teach a lesson without it. And so then I felt more equipped to, talk to teachers about where we're going, what the trends were going to be. Went back into administration, wound up here in Dinwiddie County in Virginia, kind of the southern central part of Virginia. And been here for 11 years and AP, principal, school board director, and I'm back to the AP role. And that's because the grant money that paid for me to be a director ran out. And the only opportunity was for an assistant principalship. And I thought, I'll try that again. Not exactly the career trajectory I saw myself on, but I've realized since I've been back in that role that my impact is greatest there. My impact on kids, my impact on families. And so I really have re-embraced the role. And it's funny because when I first became an assistant principal, I said, I can see myself retiring as an assistant principal and I might, because my travels have taken me back there. But again, I just feel like it's a different kind of position. You're more able to be directly involved with the excuse me, with the students, with the parents, with the community.
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
I love the just that part of your story of the career changing, right? And I think like I don't s- I see it, but I don't see it like a lot where like they go back to the classroom, right? And like normally in a district, if they're going to move into admin or instructional coach, like the chances are they're not going to go back. And I that resonates with me because that's something that I did. I did go back for a little
A
bit.
month.
It was longer than a month, and so that's a different story for a different day. But like I just think that like that speaks volumes to you as an educator and others like you that are like, no, I'm going to go back, and because I miss kids, and so I'm kind of curious, like what was the other like motivating factors there of going back in the classroom?
Well, I mean, the first time was really just changing districts and truly
Mm,
believing that to be able to best talk to teachers about what they were doing, what tools they had, I needed to be familiar with the tools.
mm,
And this last change was, frankly, just because the grant money ran out. And honestly, I didn't initially embrace the idea, but then after open house back at Dinwiddie Elementary, where we are four birds, one nest, we have a house system, four different, birds, because the eagle is our mascot. So all of our houses are birds. So we're four birds, we're one nest. And I've just been able to really just kind of find a niche with those folks. And just, I remember someone wrote me a card that said, "Thank you for being the kind of person who I just met, but I feel like I've known for years." And
mm.
that for me, it was like, okay, I'm in the right place. Um, and I didn't necessarily know that I was gonna be, but that community embraced me, and I embraced them. And again, I just found that I could have the most direct impact there. Um, and frankly, also at the end of the day, if I have to, I can say I'm going home. My name is not on any of the state reports, so if I have to, I can go home. But I just again, I feel like that impact is important. And like you said, Sophie, my whole why is to bring out the best in people so they can bring out the best in those around them.
Mm.
And I feel like I get to do that more directly because of my role. I'm in the cafeteria. I'm welcoming the car. We did Elf on the Shelf, at the holidays, and so I became the elf on the building in the middle of a driving rainstorm. But that's what people remember. It's things like that, and and you can have those kind of impacts when you're in the role of the assistant principal because you're kind of like, yes, you have to do some of the discipline and you absolutely are involved in the academics and things like, but you're also kind of like the court jester. You get to wear the ridiculous costumes, you get to do all the things that the kids are going to have the most memories of,
Yep.
because like we were saying earlier, some of the best teachers I ever had, if you asked me what they taught me, I don't know that I could tell you. But if you ask me how they made me feel, how they empowered me, I can absolutely tell you that.
Yeah.
That that
Yeah.
right there.
And that goes both ways, right? Those teachers that you didn't necessarily feel safe with, and those teachers that you did feel safe with. So it sort of molds the type of teacher that you're going to be because you know what not to do and what you want to create in that
Right.
space.
Well, and I
Yeah.
also want to make sure teachers feel safe with me. When I go in for an
Mm.
observation, if they suddenly feel like the ice they've been walking on has become very thin, then I have not done enough to establish my relationship with them. Because I got to make sure they trust me before I go in to do an observation or an evaluation or anything like that.
But
I can definitely
yep.
speak for experience that getting called to the principal's office is still absolutely terrifying.
Yeah,
Still
I know.
absolutely terrifying. And if
That's
that,
why
like,
I was gonna say,
but I
whenever I
did,
have to do that, I try to tell the person why they're coming. Because if I tell them at lunchtime, I need to see you after the buses leave, then by the time they get to me, they're already packing up their classroom, and so I need to make sure that I have a conversation with them beforehand. I say, hey, I need to talk to you about blank so that they're not coming up with all the worst case scenarios in their head.
But so yes, but the other thing with Chuck, I'm sure you do this already, but like a thought just occurred as you're explaining that. Like the other thing is like tone of voice, right? Like
Oh, yeah.
if you are, whether it's an email or verbally, like it could be something exciting. It could be a project. It could be like a moment of like gratitude, let's say, right? Like don't just leave that out and leave that big question mark for someone to then like roll that over in their own, live in their own brain for like half a day.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly. And then we don't have a huge building, but if I've got to get somebody and say I need to talk to you after, I try to. If I can't get to the room, I'll try to call them. So there is a tone of voice there, because the tone of voice in every email is severity. I don't think there's a severity font, but if it were, Google would use it. And so, you just have to make sure that you're communicating with that tone of voice. They just don't feel like there's a shoe dropping. I don't want them to feel like that.
Well,
Yeah.
and then there's some brains and days and people that their own lens, it doesn't matter how nice you say it. If you don't explain the why behind it, my brain's one of those brains. It's immediately catastrophe.
And then
So
it's
yeah,
so easy to get caught up in your agenda or your calendar for the day that you skip the why part. But that is so important to be able to stop and say, here's why I need to talk to you. And the thing too is, if you're gonna say to them, I need to talk to you, then you better be available when they need to talk to you. You know,
Mm.
that's
ooh,
that's really
So
important for me.
so this is okay. So this kind of brings up a different point that I think is like really critical here. So like I didn't realize before I moved into like a leadership role just how much it could be. And I'm not saying that teachers don't work hard. I'm not saying that. And I'm also not saying that like that work is like they be working a lot, and that is a lot within its own. But like what I found, like it was just shocking of when you're looking after so many humans, right?
Right.
Whether it's in higher ed or K through 12, like that it's like how Chuck, what is your advice for that? Because I think what you're saying is super good of like, yeah, you need to be accessible to these people. You need to consider tone of voice, how you communicate. But that takes bandwidth, right? So I'm just curious what your experiences are and like your advice to all of us that are in those leadership type of roles.
Right. Um, I I wish I had a specific. If I had a product I could sell, I could retire. That was
Right,
about
right.
developing more bandwidth. Um, I think a lot of it. It just comes. Pardon me. Sorry. It comes down to um, I guess maybe prioritizing or really seeing what the nature of something is, and like if you're in the middle of something, what can you table for a moment to try to take
Mm,
take care of whatever that teacher is calling you? Because if a teacher calls and says, I need you to come talk to this student, what that means to me is they've exhausted all of their options. They're reaching out
mm,
to you for help. And how many times in your life have you reached out for help and haven't gotten it and had it to make you feel? And I don't want to be the person that makes somebody feel like that.
yeah.
And so if I can't get to the classroom, then I'll say, I need you to send them down to the classroom and tell them we got cameras in the hallway so I'll know what they did on the way here. And, that way you can at least get them moving. I can go out to the office, meet them, bring them back. Sometimes I'll say, send them down with whatever they're working on. Sometimes a kid just needs a moment of some restorative practices, to get him reset. I do not believe in bringing a kid to my office and giving him a drink and then sending him back to class as a reward. I just can't
Right.
buy that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe that sometimes when a kid is acting out, they're out of control. There's a sense of loss of control. How can I help them reestablish that control? And then how can we talk about what they're in control of and get them back into the classroom? And sorry, you talk about bandwidth. That teacher's bandwidth is significantly reduced by that kid being in their classroom. And so part of my responsibility to that teacher is to help them reestablish that bandwidth.
Yeah.
Something that you brought up that I've heard over and over again, because I was a middle school math science tech teacher, and then I was a instructional coach. And so being that instructional coach gave me some insight that Steve didn't get, going from teacher to a leadership position. And so like I was the guide on the side as the coach. So I was also one of the people they would vent to and just to like hear things. And so they go to the office, they get a sucker, and then they come back. Mm-hmm. Was a thing, right? And I immediately am like, okay, but is that a sensory need that child needed to self-regulate? Like, was that? Yeah, and so like,
it might be, but they can have that sucker in my office. You know, I don't need to send them back to
with the sucker still.
Like, that kid left angry and came back with a sucker. I want to leave angry and come back with a sucker. You know, I got to think about how I can, you know, positively impact the moment rather than create a new problem.
That's extremely powerful. Yes. But I also I realize because some teachers don't think about that. I have 2 autistic sons. So the whole self-regulation and behaviorist communication is very top of mind for me every single day. So the fact that you're that child needs to regulate, they need to process, they need to go through something. They needed something because they're acting out. There was a need not being met.
Right.
And I find that extremely refreshing. Coming from an administrator. And that's something that I feel like more people and teachers all need to be aware of. And the fact that you are conscious of what that message sends when you send the child back, they had the sucker, but they're not going back in the classroom with the sucker is that missing piece that I feel like a lot of it, administrators are trying to do this regulation thing, but that's the missing piece. How does it look when they go back that way? Right. So fantastic.
I tell kids when they go back to the classroom, I said, I'm not going to force you to apologize because I don't believe in forced apologies. Forced apologies on me. But do you think you should apologize because of what happened? And a lot of them will say yes, and a lot of them will say no. But, you know, you do start to make an impact. And one other thing I like to do, or really probably my go-to, is when the kids come to my office and they're just really having a hard time, I'll pull out a little table hockey that I put on my desk, and we'll play that game back and forth. And it's amazing the conversations you can have with kids when their goal is to get the puck through the goal. They stop having all the walls up that kept you from having a meaningful conversation, so you could talk about that. But it's also the same thing as taking a walk down the hall. We have these wonderful sensory walk things that our county has purchased for us, and our exceptional education department made sure were put down. And it's just little things like walk along the path in the order of the ABCs, or jump from number to number. And just having that task to occupy, you know, the front part of the brain, you can start to have conversations and whatnot. And it's amazing what it does with regulation because it provides the regulation. And then once you're in a safe space and your brain feels like it's in a safe space, they're better able to reflect. And we can talk about what our next step needs to be.
This is so intentional.
Yes.
Because when I can only speak for myself, but my memory of being in school as a child and even all the way through high school is a kid gets pulled out and they're going to be in this kind of dark room, not dark room, but this room where there's it's secluded, and what happens is you just sit there and do your work in isolation. Right. You're in the hole, right? Right. And that, what does that actually solve? Absolutely nothing. And
there's no co-regulation. There's no de-escalation that's just more isolation and increased cortisol, and you're not actually processing anything or working through anything when you're in a situation like that. And I think
Yep.
the research and everything that everyone's doing now, like, would just be phenomenal. Everyone would die that. Anyways.
Well, and we of course, we don't have an in-school in-school suspension room. But when a student has reached the point where you feel like, okay, we need to remove you from the big room for a little while, they are in the office with us. They are not in a place where they just have to sit and get. There's someone who can help make sure that they're meeting their needs while they're in there. They can assist them with, and if they are a student with an IEP, they receive services also during that time. Because, and I think we all know that sometimes separating people from a situation is just to allow everybody to get a deep breath, not just the person being separated, but the room too, the classroom, but you still have to make learning happen, and you still have to make the person feel important and valued. And I think the way we do that at our school anyway is by the principal, the assistant principal, even the bookkeeper will stop by the student and say, tell me why you're here, what's going on, do you need anything, what did you order for lunch so we can get your lunch? They don't feel that sense of isolation. It's not, put up a study carrel and we'll see you in 6 hours. We just can't do that.
I love that.
I'd love to pivot a little bit, if that's okay. Because so Chuck, I first felt like I met you kind of in a similar way that I met Sophie, but like just seeing you online, right? And I had my first notice on TikTok, and I just loved your consistency. Like I feel like, and I'm gonna butcher it, but like you have like maybe like a Monday kind of post, and it's very it feels very on brand, and it's very so I'll allow you to talk about that. But like I just love it's just like pure positivity, and also like what are we thinking and how could we engage with other humans? That's kind of like the vibe I get from it.
Right. Well, and that daily posting started way back during the pandemic shutdown, and because I was the principal of the middle school, and one of the things I loved to do was open car doors in the morning and welcome kids to the building and that kind of thing. And I couldn't do that because we were at home. We were shut down. So I would send out, a message, a minute long in the morning. And we had Mindful Monday, Talk to Me Tuesday, Wellness Wednesday, or no, Watch This Wednesday, because I wanted people to post back. And then we had Thoughtful Thursday and Follow Friday. And that was usually I would highlight somebody that I wanted them to follow. And those names for the days of the week and whatnot have kind of fallen by the side, but I still post every day because I was amazed by the connection I was making, not just with our kids, but with people who are seeing those posts and were like, hey, that's speaking to something that I'm dealing with right now. And, I don't believe in toxic positivity. I don't believe you can just sit there and be positive in the face of everything in every moment. But positivity is a belief that a positive thing will come from the moment you're in. And that's what a lot of those posts are. And when you see those posts, that's usually the fourth or fifth time I've started it or, tried to really polish up what I was saying, but rarely do I prepare something for those messages. Usually I just like to say, because it's something that has affected me the day before or something that's on my calendar that's coming up. And it is kind of a way for me to remember, hey, this is how you need to handle things too. But I just love to be able to share that, because if my why is to bring out the best in people, the only way I can do that is by reaching out and connecting with them.
I love the concept of not preparing before doing something.
Of course you do.
My whole life. But it makes it authentic though, right? Like it's just true what's on your mind and what's in your heart at that moment. So Sophie, I felt like you had something.
I struggle with that because I get too wordy and I pick the wrong words in the moment. So I do try to prep a little bit more. Just like your intro today, it went through 3 different iterations with Gemini before I actually was like, I like this one, and brought it in. It's just, I like, my words are very intentional when I'm going out on social media and stuff. So I want that to be that way. Props to you for being able to do that without so much.
And I think situationally, preparation is very important in certain situations. But I kind of like what Steve was saying. This is a connection I can make because when it's not polished and it doesn't seem canned. I feel like people are more into the message, and it's just a 1-minute blurb. If I were speaking to a group, like when I do my "Don't Be Afraid to Be Awesome" keynote, I have a slide deck. I have all these different things that we do. I have interactive activities that the audience does, things like that. That is all planned and all out there. But when I finished my coffee and I'm out on the deck and making sure that the dog is getting ready for the day, that's a great opportunity for me just to take a minute to say, hey, remember, this is what you need to make sure you're doing for the people around you and help them be successful.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Chuck, like almost all of your content is exclusively video, right? Like I've not seen you do like text posts, right? Like
I'll do one every now and then. That's actually how it started, believe it or not.
okay.
But and every so often I'll put one out that's just a text post. And of course, when TikTok was pushing their, make it into a text, I'm like, oh, I'll try that. But because I feel like also that by doing it with video and whatnot, that tone of voice we talked about before, that's where you hear that. We talked about how important punctuation is, how a comma can save someone's life. And I think that tone of voice is the same way, because I can deliver the same message in 3 different tone of voices, and you will hear it 3 different ways.
Yes.
It's that unscripted authenticity that comes with video that you can't get just from text, because if it's in text, then they're putting their own lens over it when they're reading it, and can take it differently. So and me personally, I want to see your lips moving. That's the message. I want to see your body language. I want to see your lips moving. As Steve knows, I read lips very well because that's what I look at when I'm talking to people. And yeah, so it's really great. And then you're just doing this while you're doing other things. So it's sort of like whatever was on top of mind in the moment. I am curious. You say that your messages are like, this is what you could do to help like uplift other people and to be there for other people. What's your latest one? I didn't watch it.
Oh, well, on the last one, I did not. That is very. Thank you for being so vulnerable, Sophie. My latest one was just do your best, because you're not going to make everybody happy. You're not going to achieve every goal that might have been set in front of you for the day. But if you can, at the end of the day, say you did your best, then you can lay your head on your pillow comfortably.
And so important for folks that are in the thick of it, right? Like we're in February in some states. If we're not already in testing season.
It's
right?
Test prep season.
Test prep.
Definitely in test prep season. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here in Virginia, we have in elementary school, we have the student growth assessment in the fall, then the student growth assessment in the winter, and then the SOL test at the end of the year. So we actually have 3 testing sessions. And so it feels like we're just spelunking from one testing session to the next, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very cool. And so is TikTok your main destination? Is that where?
No, well, that's usually where I start because it lets me add music in the background. And then I'll also post the same things out to I can't call it X, to Twitter and to Facebook, and you put on Facebook, it goes on to Instagram and usually to trends or something like that, and then Blue Sky, also LinkedIn and Snapchat. And I don't know if that's how Snapchat's supposed to be used, but I'm just going to have my boomer moment, and that's how I'm going to use it.
I love that. I love that.
That's great. I love it.
And so I do have, so Chuck, this is what people are seeing if they're watching the pod. And so Chuck Moss EDU, like that to me, it seems like all of your social
Yep.
spaces, like if they look that up.
Everything, because I tried to do the "Don't be afraid to be awesome," but that was entirely too wordy, and then
Too
when you
long.
abbreviate it, it doesn't look right. So just Chuck Moss EDU, I think that'd be great. Although the other day I did the create a cartoon, everything you know about me through
Yeah.
ChatGPT. And it came back with another Chuck Moss, who is a local politician up in Fairfax, Virginia. So I feel like it doesn't know me well enough. But, again, I just I try to get my message out there as much as I can. And I love it when people reply back, because it just, I remember early on, one of my first messages was, if you want to make a difference when you go to the grocery store and someone left their cart in the parking lot, just roll it back with you. Just put somebody else's cart away. And our county administrator found me at a football. I'm the PA announcer for our football team. And so he motioned to me, and I leaned out the window, and he said, "We need more of that." And I was like, that just told me that was a moment where I connected, with someone, because that was meaningful to them. So, and I love stuff like that. So I love talking to people, love connecting with people. Steve, when you DM me through TikTok or whatever, I'd send you my cell phone number right away. I'm like, more people I can connect with and talk to, the better,
Yeah. Yeah. And I just love that, like, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seems like the way you're connecting with people, it's actually not taking a whole lot of your bandwidth. If we can go back to
No.
that, like you kind of like what Sophie mentions, like, oh, you're just doing other things. Sometimes it's like early morning for you, right? Like you're just like, hey, here are my thoughts. Here are my, like, just get it out there in that 1 minute, right? And then
Right.
boom, post. And I'm assuming, like, because I see it, like people are replying. I'm sure you're getting DMs, like crazy folks like me. They're like, oh, I love this and I want to be a part of it.
Well, not everybody brings your brand of crazy, but yes, I'm hearing back from people all the time, and I love that. And I like to think of it as kind of like the intentionality of the moment, because in the moment I'm making that video, that is all I am doing. That's what I'm focusing on. But then I can get to the rest of my day.
Yeah.
Earlier on in the show, you had mentioned that you got a card from someone being like, "Thank you for being a person that makes me feel like I've known you forever." And I immediately am like, how did you do that? So do you know if there's anything that you intentionally do when you start going into like a new place or you meet someone new, that you're conscious of that you do when you meet them?
That I'm conscious of? No, not necessarily. But the thing is, like, yeah, I don't care who you are. If we start having a conversation, I want to know everything I can about you in the course of that conversation. If I'm going to be on a flight for an hour and the flight attendant, like I'm sitting near their drop seats or whatever, I'm going to ask them questions, and things like that. When I go to, the doctor or whatever, there's a new nurse or a new receptionist or something like that. I'm like, hey, I give them a "Don't be afraid to be awesome" sticker. I said, hey, so great to see you. Tell me about you, and that's what I try to do. And I think it's just, Sophia, my parents taught me to care about people. And when you care about a person, you don't care about them because of what they can offer you. You care about them because they're a person worthy of being cared about. And when people feel that, then I just think it makes it easier to be their leader when they know you care about. Like, I was taking some pictures of people for something we're getting ready to do, and one of the people said, "Why? And I said, "Because I need it and you trust me." And she said, "Yep, I do." And so she stopped and let me take the picture. And so just that, just be the person, being intentional, being genuine, and being consistent. And when someone says, I need something, and you say, I'll provide it, then you do. Um, so is there anything that I can think of programmatically that I do? No, but I make sure that people know I care about them as people.
And that's just it right there. It's just like, if we can just show people that we care, to me, that's like half the battle, right? Like it,
Mm-hmm.
it just does all the things to make more greatness happen. Like,
Well, and again, I think that if people understand that you're not looking for what they can give you, but you're just looking to give them something, that just means so much.
and it not being so like transactional, right?
Right.
Not it being like, well, I'm gonna give this to you so I get this. It's like, no. We're just givers, and
Right.
we're just trying to help each other, right? Yeah.
Well, and it's funny because I did have somebody say when I first met you, I didn't think you were who you. She's like, nobody could be that. Nobody could be positive. Nobody could. And she goes, but after I was on a committee with you for a little while, I got it. I mean, that's just who you are, and that's what I try to be. And don't get me wrong, I have moments when I feel like I am not going to make it top of the mountain. Um, I have MS, and so there are days when nothing seems possible.
Mm.
But if I show that to everybody, what good am I doing for them? What am I? You know what I mean? Like my job is to encourage in the moment, um, and not to seek to be encouraged. Although it's interesting how many people will encourage you because you encourage them. Um,
Mm. Hmm.
but you, even in your darkest moment, can you be a light for someone else?
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, because
I feel like,
life is weird and crazy and
Yeah,
nuanced, right?
you
Yeah.
never know.
feel like that was a really powerful moment there. And I'm going to pivot just a little bit to your philosophy of don't be afraid to be awesome. And when I first read that, I was like, he's going to be cocky.
Yep.
And I was like, that sounds something that Steve would say. But I was like, when I read into it a little bit more, because Steve brought you to me and was like, what about this guy? And I was like, okay. It took me a little bit to get on the bandwagon because I immediately am like, oh, he's overly confident. But that's not what it really means. So I would like for you to explain that for a bit.
Well, and in conversation and whatnot, we are very quick to say to other people, "Hey, you're awesome," and just kind of move on, but and very slow to recognize it by ourselves because we're afraid of being cocky. But as parents, when have you ever sent your kid to a school where you didn't want their teachers to be awesome? I mean, I don't think you can find a parent who is really seeking mediocrity in the people that are going to spend the year in front of their kid. And another thing is that kid may not get any awesome all day except what comes from that teacher or from that leader or from the person who does a checkout at the grocery store. But until you know what your awesome is, you're not able to share it because you don't know you have it. And so you've got to
Mm.
be embraced. You got to embrace what makes you awesome. And I talked about those stickers earlier. I give out "Don't be afraid to be awesome" stickers like pieces of gum. I give them out all the time. But I have 4 or 5 different ones because not everybody's awesome is the same. And the awesome somebody needs in the moment could be the awesome that Steve brings, could be the awesome that you bring, Sophie, could be mine. It could be my wife's. What's the awesome somebody needs in the moment, and is your awesome able to fit that? And so if you know what your awesome is, you know what to share. And if you also recognize the awesomeness of the people around you, you'll be able to reach out and say, hey, this is someone who really needs what you can bring to the table. So, and when I say don't be afraid to be awesome, I'm not saying walk around thumping your own chest. I'm saying embrace what makes you the only person who's right for the moment.
The customization of awesome. That's the book title right there. Yeah, I love that. And like, you're right. Like, no parents want teachers phoning it in, or they want the best version of their teachers, right? And so, yeah, I love that. And again, I just want to underscore like how you're like, this looks different per person,
Yeah,
and that's okay. But then that also like resonates with your other kind of big thing of like the connections, right?
right.
Connecting more awesome together.
Well, and the way that Don't Be Afraid to Be Awesome kind of got started, instead of doing a convocation, we do a professional conference when we bring our teachers back in our pre-service week. They choose sessions. We have a keynote speaker. We have had Adolph Brown. We've had Jimmy Casas. We've had all kinds of people that have been our keynote speaker. And when we provide those sessions, and I was on the committee that put the first conference together, and they said, well, we want everybody on the committee to do a session. And I said, okay, I'll do something called Don't Be Afraid to Be Awesome. And then about 3 months later, the person in charge of the whole thing said, hey, I need your slide deck. And I'm like, so do I. And so that's kind of how it began. But then I just saw the power that the message, it just energized people. And so I was like, this is more important than I thought. And so that's what has allowed me to present to Visti and to the Southern Leadership Conference, down in the southwestern part of Virginia, and just the different places I've been, being able to bring that message. And frankly, I'd love it when I walk around. I went to a conference one time and saw somebody who had one of my stickers, and that allowed me to have a conversation with them and say, hey, thanks for putting me on your laptop. Tell me about you. And we were able to connect and whatnot. And then I was able to go and speak to their tech opening for the year, a keynote that, and take that message to them. And it was that sense of connection. But it's that also the willingness to be vulnerable, the willingness to have those conversations and say, if your awesome is not carrying you through the moment right now, is there a way I can help? Is there something I can help add to that?
I love that. So it sounds like because you kind of answered a question I was going to ask you like in a bit, but like maybe like next steps or other things that you haven't mentioned of like, how are you getting this message out outside of social media, right? Like, and so like, it does sound like you're speaking at conferences. It sounds like you are bringing conferences to your teachers. Yeah.
I will tell you that back in the role of assistant principal, there is not a whole lot of wiggle room. I've thought about a book and how that's going to look and things like that. But my first and foremost dedication right now is the kids at Dinwiddie Elementary School. And so that's why my messages are usually recorded in the morning before I get in the car. Because once I get in the car, I am full blown, got my Eagle stuff on, and and then when I get home, that is downtime, that is family time, that sort of thing.
Yep.
So, but how I'm getting the message out is again through those social media posts. And the thing is, I'm not doing it for recognition. I'm doing it to get the message out. And so I feel like that next step wise, I love speaking at conferences and like this. So anybody who's listening that's interested, I would love to come and have, a chance to sit down with you and your staff, or, present however, it would look. I would love that. But until I retire, my focus is going to be that elementary school, because I have learned that they need me. They need my principal too. My principal used to be my assistant principal when I was principal of the middle school in our county. And so
Uh,
she and I have a fantastic working dynamic. And whenever
nice.
she, she is so good at what she does, and I always joke with her. I was like, that's because I trained you to be this good. Um, yeah, but she is a better principal than I ever was. And but we can laugh and joke and have conversations like that, and it just allows us to really it's a real sense of co-leadership in that
I
building.
love that. That sounds familiar.
Yes, it does. And so Chuck, just if you're not aware, like Sophie and I used to work together
Oh,
um,
okay.
at an educational technology company. Um,
So
she
are you
taught
I
me
working
trained
together
him.
now because of that or in spite of that?
we're not sure, but
I
yeah,
trained Steve.
she
Okay.
did. She trained me, so like that. So being in on the business side of education, um, I didn't have the instructional coach background,
Mhm.
right? But when I got into leadership, it was almost like there's things that I did pick up on the business side that I do believe applies to leadership,
Oh,
particularly like
absolutely.
project management and organization and connecting with people. But yeah, a lot of that did have to do with how Sophie helped me when I was there. I yeah, I can say that. Um, Cool. So we're coming down to the tail end of our episode here. So Chuck, this has been really fun. Though we do have that one question that we ask all of our guests, and
Mhm.
that is, what is under the hat for you, right? So in other words, what is top of mind? What is something that we should be talking more about?
Uh, there are so many answers to that question, but I think that for me right now, what's in the top of my mind is how are we making sure that the teachers, who are the most front line of the people in our profession, how are we making sure that those teachers feel like we are connected to them and that we are hearing their voice? And
Mm,
hearing their voice doesn't mean we make decisions based solely on how they feel, but making sure that they understand the why, making sure that they're at the table. Because we send down a lot of because I said so. I call it from the mountaintop. We send down these messages and we never talk about the why. And I've had the unique perspective of being, starting in the classroom, going to central office, returning back to a building, and then being able to have conversations about some of those whys. And I managed grants, and I was able to understand the why behind where money goes and who can only use certain pots of money. But do we tell the teachers that? And then are we making decisions that make them feel like we are not connected to their needs?
mm.
I just in the last year, I felt that more strongly than anything that the teachers, despite a lot of lip service to the to the other side of it, they don't feel like they're being heard and they don't feel like they have a voice.
And decisions of all types, right? Like
Yeah.
the small ones and the big ones. And because I've seen it, like some administrators are like, oh, we're definitely going to have committees for new curriculum adoption, right? You see that a lot. But like the small things, if you go into a teacher break room, is the small things that they're like, I didn't know about this, or I didn't like have some sort of like, I wasn't at the table. Like, and so for me, it's like looking at it holistically of like, what are all the different types of things that make a school function, and how are teachers connected with all that?
Yeah. Well, and being in the role I'm in now, we're having a hard time finding substitutes. And so the principal and I are going into classrooms and spending a whole day as a third grade teacher. And I'm going to tell you what, if you want to learn what your third graders are struggling with, try to teach them math when they have no concept of what you're talking about, but you're 3 lessons deep into it. And then you're kind of like,
Mm,
okay, that's a problem I didn't know we had. And so then being able to ask different kinds of questions and making your PLC meetings more than 45 minutes where people stare at their watch. You're really able to ask some questions about this is what I noticed. Tell me what we're doing to address this, or how I can help you address this. What do you need for that? And not very popular with a lot of people, but I believe that if you're a central office leader, you should be in a building substituting at least once a semester.
Uh huh.
But
Uh-huh.
and Gary Brooks talks a lot about that. Gary Brooks really has hit on that a lot. But I know, and I do know that people in central office have a lot to do. And I say that as someone who's been there. But I made it a priority in my position that twice a week I was in a building talking to a leader. And knowing what I know now, just saying to that leader, hey, you got an unopened or an unfilled sub spot? Let me come in for a day and do that. And the last year, my position at the central office, I filled in as an AP at every single school in our system, from pre-K up to our alternative system. And I was also the administrator of our virtual academy that we ran during the shutdown. And so I was able to see everybody's needs and what was going on. And it is eye-opening, because when you are in it, and you're, because when you say, why aren't the kids learning this? Well, because this is what's happening in the classroom, and because so again, unless you're in there, how do you know that?
The leadership visibility is so key, and it doesn't happen consistently across the landscape of it all, right?
And I know that that's not on purpose, but that needs to be part of their intention, to be seen, to be,
Yeah.
To be seen and then to see what's going on. It's not the same if it's just a conversation as it is experiencing it. Like, you can know, but then to understand is like a deeper level of knowledge that then you can do something a little bit more with it. It's more impactful.
Right.
Yeah.
100%. Chuck, this has been super fun. You are welcome back anytime. This has been a phenomenal conversation. We're going to continue to follow you, share out your stuff, like your consistency online. And we're just happy to have you, and we really appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you. I was thrilled when you invited me. And you say I'm welcome back anytime. Invite me anytime. In fact, if there's a Friday night and you have a guest canceled for Saturday, call me. Because there is, and we said before we started, one of the things I said to Sophie was, I believe that interviews that become conversations are where the power is. And that's what we did today. And I can talk to anybody, anytime. I'll bend your ear for an hour, whether you're willing to listen to me or not.
Love that. Love that.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's been so good. Awesome. And for everyone that's watching / listening, we really appreciate all of the love and support that you're continuing to show us, the likes, the subscribes, the jumping into the swag store, stuff of that nature. But until next time, friends, keep your hats on, but your minds open. Bye-bye.